Please join me here. Here you are.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and really a pleasure and an honor to be on this distinguished panel. I purposely didn't make slides because I do think that space is a very fluid topic, and there's a lot going on there. And so a professor before us did a marvelous job of summarizing on a very high level all the things that we can do. But I wanted to start with a slightly personal story, because I think one of the things we wanted to do today is inspire, others to take a look at the space economy.
Absolutely.
Right. And so my personal story is like, how did I get interested in space? I was born in a country that no longer exists, Soviet Union. Right. And so we remember, the moon landing, but before the moon landing, the Soviets were the first, country to send people up into space with Yuri Gagarin, 1961. A few years before Armstrong and his famous first steps on the moon. And so that became an inspiration to a lot of people from that generation who were born in the Soviet Union. And as a child of that time, it's slightly after I was born, slightly before I was born, but that really inspired me to look into space. And so what is Hong Kong's Yuri Gagarin moment? What is Hong Kong's Armstrong moment?
Absolutely.
And I think we're still looking for that, but just because it hasn't happened yet, and maybe on this panel, we will find out that it has, but we should not stop trying and we should not stop looking, right? So I encourage people to continue to look into space. And if we fast forward from 1960 to today, so much has changed, right? And Professor Quentin mentioned the things that have changed.
Yes.
But one very basic, I think, change that has happened is the private sector has gotten significantly more involved in space.
Tell us a little bit more about that in terms of the private sector.
Yep. So private sector is essentially when contracts are going out of the government, from NASA, European Space Agency, the Russian Space Agency, here closer to home, the Chinese Space Agency. The contracts are going away from them and more to the private sector. And we're seeing more and more of that. Just in 2020, the space sector attracted over $12 billion of investments. And that's private sector investment, not public sector investment. So that doesn't include NASA's budget. That doesn't include the China Space Agency budget, right? So that's a pretty large number. And one extra thing that personally gets me excited, and we'll come back to it full circle, is the over $300 million deployed in early stage space tech companies, right? Because historically, we have identified space and we've associated space with very expensive projects, right? That you need deep, deep pockets. And that was true, because if you look at the type of people that were involved in the private sector space industry, Elon Musk, billionaire, Jeff Bezos, billionaire, right? Richard Branson, billionaire, Paul Allen, billionaire, right? So that list is, mega wealthy people kind of got involved in it. But that was 20 years ago.
And how about today then?
Today, that's the 300 million plus that was just deployed in just this year. It's not even the end of the year. And so full circle, funds like us, Fresco Capital, we're much, much smaller than any of these billionaires that I just mentioned, but can start to get involved in the private sector because of some of the developments that Professor Quentin mentioned, and we will be discussing further at this panel, but application layer stuff, right? And I just want to do I have time for one example for
You've got 3 minutes.
Cool. So there's a company that we were very fortunate to invest in. It's called Spire. So Spire is a new age space company, and we have a music break.
Yeah.
New age space company.
Yes.
And they launch what Professor Quentin coined Cubesats into space. These are 10 by 10 centimeter small satellites that are significantly cheaper than the previous satellites that NASA and others used to launch.
That's right, because when most people think about satellites, they think about huge structures, multi-million-dollar investments. But what you're saying today is we've got the Cubeset, which it makes it much more manageable for individuals.
Individuals, small organizations, private companies,
even in schools, institutions, right?
For sure, for sure. They cost less than $500,000 to design and launch, and with the likes of SpaceX, launch costs are going down. And so Spire was able to kind of converge on these trends of lower cost satellites, cheaper launches, and now has the third largest fleet of satellites in the world.
Oh, amazing.
A private sector company, right?
Yes.
So they have over 100 satellites up in space, and they monitor critical data such as GPS, weather, which is very important to our day-to-day. We don't realize it, but I Ubered here, and that's GPS data, right? And so they monitor those type of data infrastructures. But what is really cool is if you think about the type of entrepreneurs that were involved, you needed a lot of money, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, right? 20 years ago, the internet economy was exactly the same. You needed to raise $20 million just to build your own server, i.e. you needed to build your own infrastructure, and only then could you set up an internet company, pets.com, right? But that's why we had the internet bubble. Today, what happened was Amazon Web Services completely changed that, right? Now anybody can set up an internet company, much cheaper. Spire and the likes of Spire have started to build this infrastructure up in space that they invested into, and now are allowing anybody to set up a space company on top of their infrastructure, just like Amazon Web Services. So now it's drastically reduced the cost of a space company to be set up, not billions of dollars, now in the early millions. And so it's much cheaper to become a space entrepreneur. And I think that opens a whole floodgate of opportunities for entrepreneurs to take advantage of.
Excellent. And so I look forward to welcoming you back at the end of the session webinar, and we'll talk a little bit more about the opportunities here in Hong Kong for individuals.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.